Good morning. Welcome to the First Universalist Unitarian Church. My name is Mark Cordes. I'm a member of this congregation. A very warm UU welcome to our visitors this morning. We encourage you to join us after the service for coffee and enlightening conversation in the atrium. We have red mugs for our visitors and newcomers so we can identify and get to know you. If you don't drink coffee or like the color red, you can just find me after the service, and I'd love to chat with you to find out a little bit more about your journey and what brought you here today. Since 1858, UU Wausau has been a leading voice for progressive beliefs in central Wisconsin. We're an intentionally free and inclusive community that welcomes everyone regardless of age, sexual orientation, ethnicity, or economic status. As you drove or walked here this morning, you probably passed by several churches on your way. Many churches and their corresponding religions are like fish bowls. They're confined to a specific area of belief. So what makes this church different or unique? We're not a fish bowl. Instead, we strive to encompass the entire ocean of spiritual beliefs, and in many times, non-belief. So wherever you may be on life's journey, you not only belong, you're fully accepted here. Welcome home. Between Sundays, we invite you to participate in our events and classes during the week. Be sure to subscribe to the church's newsletter, The Circuit Rider, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates. They have asked me to share some announcements. I guess first I'd like to say that there is a Lenten book pickup today. They're available out in the atrium, and there's a $10 donation to cover printing costs. The community focus collection last week, the congregation donated $642 for the Wausau Free Clinic. Thank you for making an impact and for the continued dedication to bringing hope and healing to those in need within our community. Your giving nature is truly making a lasting difference. Today after the service, there's a community potluck lunch hosted by the Social Justice Committee. Whether you brought a dish to share or simply an open heart, all are invited to participate in this gathering. The church board will also be present during the potluck for a listening session. Offering a chance to share feedback and thoughts, everyone is encouraged to participate. Collecting donations. We have 2 donation drives at the First UU Church of Wausau and need your support. The Community on Call initiative, we're collecting toothbrushes, toothpaste, hand warmers, and new warm socks. You can drop these items off during normal business hours at the church or on Sundays. Please only donate the items that are listed. Family Radio's Help for Homeless Hygiene Drive. They're donating new hygiene and cleaning items for local crisis agencies. Drop off donations by March 16th or give financially on their website at thefamily.net. On Tuesday, March 11th at 7 p.m., there's a Creativity Matters. That's a monthly drop-in group for high school youth and adults looking to explore spirituality through art. No experience or artistic skills required, just a playful attitude and an adventurous spirit is all you need to bring. 2 items that aren't UU related, but I thought people in the congregation may find these of interest. The Franciscan St. Anthony's Retreat Center in Marathon City is hosting Transitions and New Beginnings Retreat coming up on April 4th through April 6th, which I thought may fit in well with Brian's sermon today. If the Spirit calls, perhaps this may be a good fit for you. And lastly, the White Conch Dharma Center is a Tibetan Buddhist temple in Neillsville, Wisconsin, about an hour west of here. And they have a spring retreat. It's Repair Your Meditation Problems. That's on April 25th through the 27th. I was there about 2 years ago and did a retreat. It was absolutely fantastic. If you're looking for something that's going to really take you out of your comfort zone, I would highly encourage you to check it out. All the prayers and chants are in native Tibetan, which is an absolutely beautiful language. So before we begin the worship service, which Brian has entitled Springs of the Heart, Unexpected, Unchosen, but somehow exactly what we need, this reminds me, during the change of seasons, without a cold, dark winter, it's unlikely that we would welcome and appreciate the coming spring like we do now. As Henry Burgson reflected on these changes of both seasons and ourselves, he said, "To exist is to change. To change is to mature. To mature is to go on endlessly recreating oneself." What fitting words to contemplate as we prepare for today's engaging and equally applicable sermon. As we begin our worship, let's take a moment to extend peace and blessings to one another. Please rise and greet your neighbors.
Morning again.
Good morning. Yeah. Now, dear friends, let us gather our hearts and minds for worship. Please join me in reciting the chalice lighting referenced in your order of service. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the fire of commitment. We light this symbol of our faith as we gather together. Now please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn in the gray hymnal, number 346. Come sing a song with me.
For this morning's Time for All Ages, I'd like to share with you a story that was written by Martha Dallas. It begins in a bleak and dreary place that are nothing but shades of brown and gray. Nothing is alive. There are no trees, no flowers, no grass, except for the people who are made to live there. Every day, they spend their time digging holes. They dig up the dirt, put it in a pile, and when they are done digging their holes, they are forced to then put the dirt back in the hole. And they do this day after day after day. All they have to eat is some broth and some stale bread, but there isn't enough to go among them to share, so they go to bed hungry most days. And their beds are hard and wooden. They don't have any blankets or pillows or squishimals to keep them company at night. So they wake up in the morning as exhausted and aching and hungry and as sick as they were the day before. But one day, a little girl was heading out to do her work, and she noticed a treasure down on the ground. It was a tiny red raspberry. She picked up the raspberry, and she put it in her pocket, which my dress does not have, which is wrong. But she kept that raspberry in her pocket all day long. And then, as luck would have it, as the evening rolled around, a leaf blew in from the outside. She picked up the leaf, and she put the raspberry on the leaf, and she brought her treasure to her very best friend. And she gave that raspberry to her friend, who accepted it gratefully. Now, I have to tell you, this is a true story. It's based from a camp. It was in Germany. And the author wrote the story and shared the story not to remind us that we can find hope, or not only to remind us that we can find hope in the bleakest and darkest of times, but also that's a gift we can share with one another. So this morning, I've brought us some raspberries, and I have some volunteers who are going to pass them out. I invite you to take one if you would like, but hold on to it until everyone has one. And they are Wisconsin raspberries in March. I tried to pick out the very best ones, but urge to give one to Brian, but I'm not sure. Brian, do you want a raspberry? Yes. I suppose he's earned a raspberry for today. Here, I'm gonna take one. Mark 2. Does everyone have one that wanted one? Nope. Are there extras up in the balcony, Maddie? Can you bring them down? If you didn't get one and you wanted one, can you raise your hand? Kind of looks like this middle section here, Maddie. If we have other extras. Thank you, Jen. Yep, if you want to put your hand back up if you want one, and they've got a couple extras there. Thank you. So when you have your raspberry, I want you to hold it. And I want you to imagine you had a rough day. which nowadays probably isn't that hard to pick. And I want you to imagine that your friend has brought you this treasure, the only thing in the world they truly own, and has shared that gift of hope and love with you. Now please enjoy your raspberry. And I'm hoping that's the best raspberry you've ever had. And that is our story for today. Invite our youngest preschoolers through 5th grade downstairs for RE, and I invite our youth group members, so 6th grade through 12th grade, upstairs to Walker Hall for their RE group. And whether you are heading off to RE or remaining in the sanctuary, I invite you to bless everyone here with our children's song. The words are printed in your order of worship.
I'd like to invite everyone to join me now in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Take just a moment to center yourself. Find a nice, comfortable position in your pew. Uncross your legs. Place them on the ground. Close your eyes if you're willing. Together, let us take a couple of full and deep cleansing breaths. The first one, push it down into your stomach. Hold. Breathe out. Another one, full and deep up into your chest. Let your shoulders rise. And breathe out. Take a moment and notice your heart. If you came here with someone and you're sitting next to them, feel their warmth. Let us pray. O holy life, now more than ever, we hunger for steadfast love. We gather as people of faith, knowing that we have spoiled things in far too many ways. It only takes us minutes to consume what has taken eons to create. The trees that carry the news and advertisements to our door, the fuel that moves our cars, the ozone that protects us from the sun, the metals we turn to tanks and bullets. How easily we forget that we've been called to be stewards of creation. How easy it can be to think that we are so small and insignificant that there is nothing we can do to change the way our culture treats the health of the world and all the people in it. Holy mystery, God beyond names and God beyond naming. You give us every reason to learn how to live as stewards, caring for the richness of reality. And so help us listen, help us hear, help us learn to care for what you've made. Help us answer the call you sound to care for this fragile earthen vessel that is our only home. Hear now, O holy fountain of life, the prayers we offer those in need and for ourselves, for we long to be made whole. Now let us call to mind all the joys and sorrows in our lives, and let us meditate on them in silence together now. Amen. Please stay seated as we sing prayer hymn in the Teal Book, number 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness.
The offering that we take each Sunday isn't just out of habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place and our community. The offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value personally, as well as the purpose of this congregation within central Wisconsin. With these gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. The mission and ministry of UU Wausau is made possible by the generous support of you, its friends and members. You can place a gift in the donation plate as it passes by, or you can visit our website, uuwausau.org, to make a one-time or reoccurring gift with your credit or debit card. Thank you for your ongoing support and commitment to this church and its purpose.
The reading I selected to accompany this morning's sermon is a poem by Mary Oliver entitled The Sun. The poet writes, "Have you ever seen anything in your life more wonderful than the way the sun every evening, relaxed and easy, floats toward the horizon and into the clouds or the hills or the rumpled sea and is gone? And how it slides again out of the blackness every morning on the other side of the world like a red flower, streaming upward on its heavenly oils, say, on a morning in early summer at its perfect imperial distance. And have you ever felt for anything such wild love? Do you think there is anywhere in any language a word billowing enough for the pleasure that fills you as the sun reaches out, as it warms you as you stand there empty-handed? Or have you, too, turned from this world? Or have you, too, gone crazy for power, for things?" Therein ends our reading. Margaret, thank you as always. Singers, Mark, thank you for bringing this morning's worship associate. Everyone else who volunteered, our raspberry pickers, thank you for passing those out. And thanks to all of you for being here. So lately I've been spending a lot of my meditation time trying to decide this in my head, and I'm going to invite you to help me decide what I've been thinking about this morning. And so what I've been thinking about is I've been trying to decide if humankind is amazing or if we're just a bunch of dingbats. That's what I'm deciding. Because it feels, or it seems to me, that many of us are using our ideological loyalties to justify abandoning each other. Does that make sense when I say that? You all know what I'm saying? Okay. So Dante, if you've ever read his Inferno, he said that this way of living will actually get you a one-way ticket to the 9th ring of hell, if you want a reminder. Which reminds me of a story from when I was 10 years old. So when I was 10 years old, I was living with my grandma, and my grandma caught me smoking cigarettes in her bathroom. Adding insult to injury, I was also staring at the lingerie section of a JCPenney's catalog while smoking. Don't even act like you didn't do that too, okay? Don't even act like you didn't. So my grandma, she barges in the bathroom and she goes, "You're gonna be headed to hell in a handbasket if you don't change your ways, little boy." I didn't change my ways. But anyways, so last weekend I wasn't here because I was down in the Texas Hill Country for a conference. I know you're so jealous. Texas is amazing. And so this conference that I went to was on seasonal living, which is about trying to accept that life is not something that we get, that we've been given to perfect or to tailor. So life, they said, is an unpredictable and a temporary gift. And so, because of those two things, we're here to be kind. That was the whole conference. And so I was talking to the guy who was leading the conference over breakfast one morning, and he's super smart. He's written all these books, and he has an endowed professorship at a very fancy college. And so I asked him, I said, "Why do you think we try so hard to avoid suffering and to avoid fear?" And he said, "Because companies and ads tell you that you are entitled to a life without pain, and that's a lie. Because there's no way that you are going to be able to avoid old age or death or cellulite or hair that grows out of your ear, even if all the ads promise you otherwise." And so a seasonal understanding of life, it looks at all this stuff, it surveys it, and it names it for what it is. It says, this is all garbage. And so way back in the 1970s, long before I was born, maybe some of you were around, this lady named Stevie Nicks, she wrote a song about this entire topic entitled Landslide. Have any of you ever heard this song before? And what does she ask in the song? Can I handle the seasons of my life? And it's been a hit over and over and over again. The Smashing Pumpkins did an awesome version of it. And it's been a hit for over 50 years because it's all about how life has seasons that range from blessings to scary. And we know this, right? Just think of all the things that are scary. How many of you felt a little bit scared this past week about something? Yeah, amen, right? The news is scary. Love is scary. Republicans are scary. I got one more. Democrats are scary. Everyone has fears, even if they don't admit it. And I especially think people who say, "Oh, I'm not scared of nothing," I go, that's a baby right there. And one of the fears I talk with people about in my office often, or I talk with people out in the community, is they say, one of the things I'm constantly fearful of is that I'm afraid of becoming the thing I don't want to be. So speaking for myself, I don't want to be someone who spends most of their time talking about all the people I disagree with. How many of you did that this past week? Everybody should raise their hands, you liars. Okay. I don't want to be someone who spends so many hours of my life stewing about City Hall or Madison or Washington, D.C., or how this or that person disappoints me. There's this wonderful poet, her name's Virginia Conchin, and she calls this tendency of ours the humiliation of consciousness. And she describes it like this: the moment we stop seeing ourselves as whole beings and instead shrink ourselves and define ourselves by our purchases, our political camps, or our petty grievances. It's what happens when we forget we are more than our opinions, our possessions, and the labels the world assigns us. And that's the challenge of our day, right? To learn to think for yourself, to say, I have worth regardless of whatever I buy. To resist the urge to numb or distract ourselves with one of the million things the marketplace offers us that promises happiness. I looked around on the internet, and the number of things that promise to save my life are legion. This was just on the homepage of Amazon.com yesterday when I was trying to finish this sermon before going to a concert last night at 7:30. Amazon.com promised me that I would be happy if I drank more water, if I had better posture, if my house had better lighting, and if I had a bidet for my booty. So, right, all these things promise a better, newer, fresher you, but none of them, except maybe the bidet, can actually deliver on those promises. So this morning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly tell you two true stories, one that shows how amazing we are, and one that shows what dingbats we are. But I'm not going to tell you which one is amazing and which one we're dingbats. I'm going to see which one of you decide, okay? So at the end, you're going to get to decide what kind of person you want to be, what kind of God you want to worship, what kind of morality you want. And so with that, here's your first story. In December 2023, in New York's resort city of the Hamptons, can you all imagine the Hamptons? You know what it is? It's a very, very posh place. So the principal at a local elementary school in the Hamptons, she emerged from the mailroom of the school that she's the principal of with an envelope in her hand. And this act was caught on one of the school's 38 security cameras. Here's where it starts. The therapist at the school, she says that envelope that the principal walked out of the mailroom with was actually her envelope, because inside that envelope was a $25 Amazon gift card given to the therapist by a grateful family of one of her students. This is starting really good, right? And so the therapist, she said the principal stole her gift card, and she demanded it back. And the principal said, it wasn't your gift card. And so the therapist said, I demand a public hearing to address this. The principal then came back and said, wait, not so fast. Yeah, I had a red envelope in my mailbox too, but my envelope had a $50 gas card given to me by a totally different and even more grateful family. And so here's what happened. As of last month, because of the ongoing investigation into the missing $25 Amazon.com gift card, the principal was placed on administrative leave. Further, due to the contested nature of the public hearing, the school felt the need to bring in an outside arbitrator who has opened an investigation into the missing gift card that has now gathered more than 1,400 pages of testimony from a dozen witnesses. Do you all think this is ridiculous yet? It gets worse. The arbitrator's fees to figure out the case of the missing gift card have been submitted at $25,000, nearly 1,000 times the value of the missing gift card. Even the family who bought the missing gift card have begged the police, stop this investigation, but it is still happening as we speak. So, are we dingbats? So if you want evidence that human beings can be their own worst enemy, consider yourself served. But I've got another story. And so outside Waco, Texas, there's a prison for women on death row. Any of you who have the 100th anniversary edition of the New Yorker and you haven't read this story yet, you got to read it. So outside Waco, Texas, there's a prison for women on death row, and the crimes they committed that led them there are absolutely horrifying. There's no doubt about it. But what's equally horrifying are the stories about every single one of these women's upbringing. Every one of their stories have abuse, addiction, poverty, abandonment. And I'm not trying to make excuses for anything anyone did, but as my therapist has told me multiple times, hurt people hurt people. And so years ago, outside Waco, Texas, a deacon, he urged a convent of Catholic nuns to start visiting these condemned women. And at first, the nuns refused because a nun's calling is actually to retreat from the world. It's not to walk in to all of its dark little corners. But something or someone urged these nuns to go. And so they went. And what they found surprised them. Quote, this is what one of the nuns said: "Everyone is a sinner. Nobody's perfect. And because nobody's perfect, our task is to shine our light in even the darkest places." End quote. And so over time of these nuns going back and back and back to visit these condemned women, the nuns, they introduced all of the women on death row to this ancient monastic ritual called the chapter of faults. It's a practice of honesty, of gratitude, of asking for forgiveness. If you're familiar with this, it sounds to me something very, very similar to a recovery meeting if you've been to one. And so the service begins with the nuns saying this, quote, "We inevitably hurt each other. We hurt each other out of laziness and selfishness and pride, and too easily tensions and misunderstandings can grow and make life unbearable." End quote. And so we come together this hour to confess. And then one by one, everybody in the room, including the prison guards, they started to speak. And one of the women on death row said, "Thank you for not forgetting us." And another one said, "Thank you for not trying to say that what I did isn't my fault, because it is my fault. I just want to pray today that I'm more than my mistakes." And the nun said they tried really hard not to dwell on the past. When you focus on evil, one of the nuns said, you become darker. And so I don't try to understand who did what or why. God sent us to love them as they are, those who are repentant, those who are not, those in denial, and those who are innocent. And so the journalist who covered the story, his name's Larry Wright, and he found himself in the midst of this very, very moved. He's a man who left his faith in adulthood for really complicated reasons. But the nuns and the women on death row, they made him really question his own faith or lack of it. And he admitted this, quote, "I never became religious in the way they prayed for, but I'm grateful. And sometimes now I do say a prayer." And I model it off Master Eckhart, who said this: "If the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it's enough." And gratitude is what seasonal living is all about. Because the fact of life is that it's people. It's other people who make life possible. Judgment, joy, pain, ecstasy, disappointment, conflict. This is how we're connected to one another. Now, ever since I read this story, I've been searching myself to understand why I'm so moved by these nuns and these women on death row. I just can't stop thinking about them. And maybe it's because I'm a millennial, and so I have never known life without social media. I've never known life without chat room trolls. I've never known life without hate-filled comments section on news online. But to me, it sounds like our society has taken a near fatal dose of self-righteousness and hostility. I think we're killing ourselves. And so I think an urgent question we need to try to answer is, will we let ideological loyalty justify our abandonment of people, or will we start reaching out? Like, what if instead of everything getting pushed further apart, just for a change, we tried to be more like the nuns, or goodness sakes, we tried to be more like women on death row, who try to see everyone as beautiful, everyone as worthy. Trans folk, gun owners, immigrants, trad wives, military veterans, incarcerated folks, prison guards, atheists, ministers, straight white dudes, black women. Because if there is a kingdom of God, that is what it looks like. Because right now, we are living in the opposite of that. And no one calls what we're living in heaven. What I know is that all of us are way more than our fears. We're more than our pettiness. We're more than our anger. What I also know is that there's this thing called grace that always meets us where we are, but never leaves us where it finds us. And it's this thought that turns failure into a gift and heartache into a blessing. Despite what we see and hear and try to convince ourselves of, the world does make room for goodness. The world does make room for decency. And the task of life is to show kindness to others and not to just always complain about their failings. And so I read somewhere the other day that what most of us need most in this time, in our era, is we need essentially a lesson on how to behave at dinner. Like, you should always imagine that you're at a dinner table whenever you're out in society. And here's my advice about how to behave at a dinner table. Are you ready? Take notes. Here's the lesson. The next time you find yourself dining on someone's reputation, the next time you find yourself snacking on someone's feelings, or enjoying a steady diet of nothing but stories about your boring old self, remember that you are talking with your mouth full. So, you all get to decide the question: are we amazing or are we dingbats? That answer is up to you. Will you feed the part that stews and condemns, the part that hoards grievances like they're little treasures? Or will you feed that part of you that says thank you, even when it's hard, even when it's undeserved, even when the world gives you every reason to walk away? The whole point of seeing our lives as seasons is to embrace the reality that life is filled with ups and it's filled with downs. Spring brings new beginnings, summer holds all the abundance, autumn teaches us to let go, and winter reminds us to endure. But through it all, the harvest, the gathering of love and grace, that's what we're here to do. And if we're lucky, we don't just reap it for ourselves, we actually get to share it with one another. So what I think is, I don't think the world needs more people obsessed with being right. I think the world needs a lot of people obsessed with being kind. It doesn't need more perfect people. It needs people who are willing to name their flaws and their fears, but still willing to love. I always tell people when they come to me for pastoral counseling that my advice is totally free. That means that you can take my advice or you can totally ignore it. But the best thing I've got at this moment is prayer. That's my only prescription. And so I invite you to pray, or if you don't pray, I invite you to reflect with me as we draw our time together to a close. So please pray with me. Dear one, help me to not be so proud today. Help me remember that everyone is carrying something heavy, even those people I disagree with, even those people who annoy me. Keep me from enjoying other people's failures and make me want to know their goodness more. Remind me as often as you can that grace never flinches and that I need it just as much as other people do. And may we have the courage to answer hatred with kindness, trusting that even in small ways, this too is an act of resistance. Amen. If you would, I invite you to rise in spirit or body for our closing hymn in the teal booklet, number 1064, Blue Boat Home. I invite you, if you came here with someone, to reach out, take their hand. If you're here alone, you can reach out with your heart. May the truth that sets us free and the hope that never dies and the love that casts out fear lead us forward together until the dayspring breaks and all shadows flee away. Please relax, enjoy the postlude, join us upstairs for lunch.